Welcome, everyone, back to the Fantasy Football Profit Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey. And today we're done with the draft talk. It's all over. So now we're going to try to get you ready for your season with picking up some players that might still be in your waiver wire. So the way we're going to do this year is a little different. Probably we're going to talk a lot more about players maybe that are more under the radar. I think everyone knows who the waiver wire pickups are every week these days. So we're going to try to get some guys that are maybe more under the radar, guys you should look at. This week's a little different because no one's played yet, but I think we got some names here that are interesting that maybe you should look at. I got some, I don't know, see what Jeff has here. I want to throw out a couple names before we get going on this. I'm just going to throw out a couple names that I think are just way too still not owned enough. One, Jaylen Warren. He's only 48% owned on ESPN. Let's get that number up a little bit, I would say. Tank Bigsby. This was a surprise to me. Only 28% owned. Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, that one was the big one for me too.
Yeah.
Probably because I like the guy, but I think that he has a clear path of playing right now. Like even Jaylen Warren, which I totally agree with you. I feel like Tank Bigsby has an easier route towards more production currently than Warren does. So I'm very, very intrigued by that.
Yeah, Bigsby's one of the under 30% owned. The problem with him is what is his path? I mean, his path is a Travis Etienne injury, right? But he's going to be valued. Yeah. He's going to play somewhat other than that, but that's where he's at. But,
we'll say that, but I also think, and we don't know exactly, but either that or short yardage, short yardage down back. I think that he does have an ability to be the goal line back. I don't know if they start him that way or whatever, but with Warren, I do feel like, okay, third down back, something of that nature. But with the touchdown upside of Tank Bigsby, and once again, we're talking early. We don't know what it's going to be. I just see a little more possibility there. So I'm just very, very curious why it was at 28.
Devin A-Chain at only 26% is interesting too, especially with Jeff Wilson now on IR for 4 weeks. That one I think A-Chain's been hurt a lot this preseason though, and he's also small, so people are thrown off by that. But hey, 26% owned.
Yeah, I think it was the injury. He got injured at the wrong time. Everyone was drafting around the time you got that news. So I think he's a one that you can easily go back and throw him on your bench if you accidentally grabbed a guy you don't really want or an injury already occurred. I think Bigsby and A-Chain are two perfect examples of guys that you grab early rather than wait for them to do something in week one.
Those guys, and I think they could have value early, very early. So those are the picks to do. Roshan Johnson, 23% owned. And the reason why he's interesting is the backfield. Okay, I like Khalil Herbert, obviously, if you watch the show this preseason. I like Khalil Herbert, but is he a sure thing? I don't think so. And this is a weird backfield. We got Khalil Herbert, Deontay Foreman, and then Roshan Johnson. I don't think Foreman is a factor. I just don't see that being a factor at all. But Johnson, I mean, you can picture the scenario, right? Where in the second half of the season, Johnson's this is the starting running back getting the majority of the carries. I can absolutely see that happening.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think he's such a question mark even coming out of college, and that's probably why he's, people aren't really sure. And Khalil Herbert did have kind of a good, he had a couple of big plays, and that's what's going to stick out. So everyone's like, he's the number one. He was the number one before. We're not confused by that. And obviously, I would much rather have him. I like Khalil Herbert a lot. But Roshan Johnson, coming out of college even, we weren't really sure. So I think just the fact, that's why people kind of like him too. Like the 23%, I'm sure that they're, over the moon and they're like, I got a huge steal. But we really don't know what it is. And I can't wait to find out. And I think you're going to find out really early. I think that in that Bears offense too, because of how much they're going to run and do, they're going to go to Fields' strong suit. I do think that multiple running backs are going to be used a lot. And like you said, I think Foreman is there for the depth of it. He's not completely washed or anything, but I don't think that they brought him in to be a workhorse or anything. I think it's more of like if someone else gets hurt, we know we want to use a lot of backs. So he's another one that I think you have to have on your bench really quickly because he might have one big game or Herbert gets hurt in week one. And then all of a sudden you have to throw a ton of your budget on him. So
then there's some guys I know will get asked about him. People think is a good waiver wire pick, like a Kenny Gainwell type. there's been talk that he was like, ahead of Swift and Penny and all that. I don't buy it. And even if it was true, like that just means to me that the split is even more with that backfield. Let's say Gainwell truly is the first back out. I mean, can you imagine that backfield then? It's going to be at least 3 players, if not 4, with Boston Scott.
Yeah.
So I would say I have no interest in Kenny Gainwell. I've heard some things about it, but no interest whatsoever.
I agree with you again. You're looking for the Miles Sanders effect, right? You're kind of like, okay,
yeah.
what running back can get pay dirt because of that offense is so potent? Miles Davis, Miles Sanders scored so many touchdowns, and that's not really Gainwell's bag. So if they do split it up, Hurst was already bleeding into all the, rushing touchdowns, red zone carries, all of that stuff. I just don't see Gainwell breaking out and doing a role that he's never really had before in the NFL. He's a solid back, don't get me wrong. I just don't think the upside is really there. Like if you desperately needed a running back, take a shot at him, but I would much rather take a chance on one of the other rookie running backs that we just talked about, because I think their upside is so much higher.
Way more.
You'd have to be in a real difficult position with running back in order to grab him, because I just don't think that, mediocre output at best.
So one situation that's really it's confusing. No one knows what it's going to be is the Colts in their running back situation. Jonathan Taylor is obviously at minimum out 4 weeks. We'll see how that whole thing plays out. In the meantime, though, they have Deion Jackson. They have Zach Moss. They have Evan Hall. Zach Moss probably is going to miss week 1. It looks like he's been injured. So we can see that happening. After that, what do you do with this? Do you pick up any of these guys? Do you just stash them for a week, see how it plays out? I think that might be the move if you have bench spots. Try to throw Jackson and Hall maybe on there just to see if there's anything there. Where I'm at.
I totally get that. I think the hard part is right now in week 1, and we can dwindle it down as we go through it, but the question, there's so many guys that have potential here, and there's probably a ton of them that are in your league that you can grab right now, even if you have a 12-man league, even more. There's a lot of really talented guys out there. Which ones are going to hit? Which ones are going to be sitting on the bench? I think 100% agree. Like if you like someone and you feel like I feel like when it comes to waivers, you have to go with your gut, because more than likely you try this guy and you might have to cut him after 1 week. So my question for that one would be, do you think you're going to find out more about that player in the first 2 weeks, week 1 or week 2? Because after that, you're probably going to cut bait and you're probably going to try to find someone else. So that would be my big one. Who will actually hit in week 1? And that's why I like A-Chain, Bigsby right away. I think that, or Roshan too. I think any 3 of those guys could hit in week 1. And those are the ones that you want to go for. So I'm not so much on the other ones, but the wait and see approach is just what we have at the moment.
And then some other names I'll throw out quick, just keep them on your radar. Kyron Williams from the Rams, only because I don't trust Cam Akers. But actually, the problem is,
I love that. I love that. The thinking behind it, I think, is really, really solid, because I don't trust him either.
I mean, Deshaun McVay trust him. I mean, you saw last year. Like,
it looked like he didn't want him on the team
exactly
for 5 weeks.
Kyron Williams, just, he's the second running back there. There was a little bit of hype from him last year, only because of the situation. So I don't think that's completely cleared up. So Kyron Williams is interesting. Ty Chandler with Minnesota is interesting, only because he was an okay prospect out of college, but no one knows what Madison can do with a full-time role. So it's just that unknown, right? You don't quite know. It's kind of the guys just keep your your eye on this week and see if there's anything. I don't know if you got any other names, Jeff, but that's pretty much what I got for running back.
No, I think that pretty much does it for running back for me as well. Yeah.
Wide receiver, there's some interesting names out there for sure. Again, I don't know how quickly these guys will make an impact, but you never know with receivers. So some of the names, let me see here. Okay, this one is, I'm going to throw them out there. I don't know what I think about it or how I feel. I don't know if I love the player at all. Van Jefferson. He's probably the number 1 with the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, you're once again, you're right. I have a hard time with this one. If he's really the wide receiver number 1, you kind of have to, but I just don't trust him
I don't
I
either.
don't trust that offense this year.
I want to throw it out there, but I don't like it. So let's not pick him up. There's there's other guys I really do want.
That is so sad that the number one, I'm kind of like, I'll go for like a number 3 on a team.
Well, Rashad Bateman at 17.9. I would just take the chance. Wait,
yeah, I like Bateman a lot.
I think there's talent there. Let's see how it plays out this year. And he's only 17.9% owned on ESPN right now, which is unreal. So just give him the chance. But these are two guys I actually love to pick up. Jaden Reed for the Packers, 15.4% owned. Dubs and Watson were both out of practice today. Both of them. And it could be very interesting for Jaden Reed.
Yeah. Once again, we don't know where we're going to go with Jordan Love, but trying to rebuild that wide receiving core. We saw where it was last year, and it's whoever does well is going to get playing time. Jaden Reed is a very capable young wide receiver. I don't know what he's going to be like in the NFL, but he always kind of exceeded expectations in college. I'm partial, but I do think that there's opportunity there. And do I think that, other guys will get the first shot over him? Yes, but the injury thing is really interesting. So if he has one good game, all of a sudden he will find himself on the field for sure. I don't know how much they're going to throw immediately. So he might be a little bit of a project, but I would rather see what we have with him rather than taking a shot at kind of a veteran or something that's filling in a spot.
This next one, though, I really love too. Marvin Mims, 13% owned.
I love this one. I think this one is a steal.
Absolutely. I can't believe he's only 13% owned. That's ridiculous in my mind.
No,
Marvin Mims should be on maybe not every roster, but the majority of them, I think he should be on. Jerry Jeudy's injured right now. Other than that, it's Cortland Sutton there, right?
And they had 2 huge injuries, right? Jerry Jeudy is a huge one. Like right away for Patrick went down with a Achilles injury.
Yeah.
So immediately Mims is playable. Like he's going to be in the top 3 wide receiving crew. And then Jerry Jeudy goes down, and all of a sudden he goes from kind of like, deep field specialist to, we need you to catch a few more balls. So the Broncos offense has to get better. So, they're going to be looking for other ways to score. I like Sutton a lot, but he's not a burner. So I like the fact that he's a very different player than they have on the field. Not to mention, we don't know what we're going to get out of the running back crew there. Hopefully Williams is back and healthy, but there's a lot of plays you could make up for. And Marvin Mims is a very good athlete. So that one I was surprised when I saw 13%.
Me too.
Because of all the injuries around him, he is in the perfect position to soak that up.
To be honest, out of all the guys we've talked about the entire episode so far, I think he's my favorite. I agree. I truly think he is.
He is the one I saw, and he's not as safe as the other ones, but I think the upside, and that's what I'm going for, is tremendous with him.
Honestly, that's all we care about right now is on these episodes. I swear it's upside. It's like, who could be the guy that breaks out and becomes a league winner or helps you win leagues? That's really what I care about. And that's why I like to take chances on these guys. He's one of them.
Yeah. You should, hopefully you have, you've drafted your team where you at least have a starting lineup. So if a safe guy isn't making it into your starting lineup, definitely go for the more of the home run threat. I think you have to.
If like in some situations, okay, if you have a good quarterback, like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen type, you don't need to have a second quarterback. You know what? You really don't.
Pick him up when you need to, and you don't need them in the first 3 weeks, probably.
I'm pretty certain neither of them has. I think the earliest either of them has a bye is week 10. One of them is like week 13. It might be Josh Allen, it might be week 13. So that's just you just have no need. There's no need to have a second quarterback. So get one of these guys. Rashee Rice is interesting to me only because I don't know what Kansas City's going to do. So if you have a bench spot, maybe some of these other guys aren't available, throw him. I'll say the same thing about Jalen Hyatt, just because he's a rookie receiver for the Giants with a team that doesn't have great receivers. We don't know if you have the bench spot and some of these other guys aren't there, maybe throw him. There's a couple. Rashid Shaheed. I like him, but he's the number 3 with New Orleans. How is that going to play out? I don't really know what their passing game is going to be, but I like the player. Don't know. He's behind Olave and Michael Thomas, though. So how much is there really there? That's could be the problem. But I'll say one last name I got that I'm interested in. He might do nothing at all, but it's just interesting. He's a rookie. Puka Nakoa. I can't even know how to say his last name for the Rams. Again, same situation. I like him. I would pick him up over Van Jefferson because in the same team, only because I think I know what Van Jefferson is. And I don't know what Puka is. So that's why I'd be more interested in picking him up and just seeing what he is. So those are some of the names I got. Jeff, you got any others to add here?
I want just one more that I want to add. And he's a lot along the same lines as Puka. And he's a rookie. He's on what I assume will be a bad offense, but I love what he brings to the team, and it might be perfectly because he's going to be the starting slot wide receiver. But Josh Downs, I feel like because he's an undersized receiver, didn't get as much praise as he probably deserved because you don't know how they're going to use him. But with a rookie quarterback, we're not sure what is going to happen with Taylor and all of that. Like, we assume, we're just kind of assuming. We don't know how all of it will work. And even last year when he was playing, the offensive line wasn't quite where we thought it was going to be, and they couldn't run as efficiently. They're going to have to try to throw the ball as much. And I have a feeling Richardson is going to struggle mightily. That's just my prediction. I think he'll run and have a few good games fantasy-wise, but I think he's going to be a disaster the first year. That's what I think. Josh Downs could be a safety blanket for him, and I think that he gets separation. He has really good hands. Once again, college and NFL are two very different games, but I think that he's a very intriguing one that I could definitely see. I like Mims better, but he's one that you probably don't have to get him week one. I would rather try out one of the other guys, but I'm keeping an eye on him, and I'm anyway. So, and especially in the PPR league, I think that's even more so. So he's another name, Josh Downs on Indianapolis.
For sure. No, a lot of the rookies, second year guys. If you have bench spots, throw them at the end. See what happens. You don't know this early in the season. So that's my wide receivers. Tight ends, I really don't. I mean, tight ends, it's maybe somebody comes out. I'm interested to see what Irv Smith can do with Cincinnati, just because we know he seems like a talented guy. It's just never come together. I wouldn't put him on your bench probably right now, but hey, just watch it, see what he can do. Jake Ferguson's an interesting name from the Cowboys, only 5% owned. Seems like he's going to be their starter. But hey, see what happens there too. Greg Dulcich has dropped all the way down to 29% owned now. So another interesting name. He keeps dropping a little bit, but we'll see when it actually gets out there and see what happens. But those are just some names to watch, maybe at tight end. Probably no one. And I guess one of them could be Noah Gray from the Kansas City Chiefs, depending on what happens with Kelsey and his knee. So, and how serious it is. They say now they're saying a bone bruise, but it was hyperextended. Who knows? So and if that's true, would you rather have him, or would you rather grab one of the other wide receivers, like the Rashee Rice or even a Justin Ross or something? Would you rather go wide receiver or him? I think I'd rather go the receiver, probably Rice, or we didn't say Justin Ross. That's another name I like, Justin Ross, just because of how good Justin Ross was in his freshman year at Clemson. The guy was awesome. So the talent's there. I'd rather have one of those guys.
So the injured fusion, or like his bones were fusing to, it was some very strange medical thing that they had to figure out. Maybe I'm getting it wrong, but
it was something. We'll
he's healthy now and he's back and he was looking pretty decent in their OTAs and whatnot. So he's an interesting one.
All right. So there we go. Unless you got any other names, those are my names.
Those are big ones. Guys. If you could say, if you have your top running back and your top wide receiver, or give me two of each, which ones would you actually put on your roster?
Okay, we said
we said a lot of names.
So Mims for sure, obviously. That's easy. If I'm going running back, if I'm able to say like Bigsby and A-Chain, for sure, those two, without a doubt. It just
you have a preference between one of those?
What's that? Between those two?
Do you have between those two? Do you have a preference, like one and two?
I'd probably put A-Chain right now, only because I think the path to him being the guy it's a simpler path. It's only like Mostert right now. So
right, you're thinking that A-Chain can actually outplay Mostert potentially, and Mostert is so injury prone.
Yes, and that's why I'd probably go A-Chain over there.
I got you. Okay.
Wide receiver wise, it's definitely it's Mims and Jaden Reed without a doubt, and I'll say my third is Puka. So
nice.
I'd throw him on my bench before I put a lot of those other guys. So there we go. Cool. There's some waiver wire pickups for you. Some early waiver. Don't play these guys this week. That's not where we're about this year. We're not telling you to play guys this week. We're telling you to pick these guys up because maybe they become a thing later on. So that'll be the difference in our waiver wire show this year.
Yeah,
we're not telling you.
That'd be amazing if you try to start them. But
don't start these guys.
We're trying to save you budget as well. If you get them early and you don't have to do it when they break out, that's what we're trying to. So you're mining for gold right now, like we talk about, and we'll figure out who's who after the fact.
And further on in the season, once we get a little more like data on defenses, we'll try to help you with defenses too, like a week or two ahead of time. It's so much easier to get them a week or two ahead of time if you have the bench spots than having to go after them.
And usually we'll find out different offenses that you just want to go. So a lot of times, like when Detroit was really bad, we just grabbed the defense they were going against. So there will be teams like that, and we'll help you out with that.
For sure. All right. That'll do it for this one. Talk to you guys next time.